Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and today we're doing something that I just really wanted to do. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, but I wanted to do it, so we're doing it. We are assigning the Dying Will Flames to certain characters in certain books. Now, the Dying Will Flames are some of my favorite magic systems found in manga. This magic system can be found in the Katekyo Hitman Reborn, or KHR, or just Reborn, depending on who you're talking to. I love this series. I cannot stop talking about this series. Every time I seem to come back to California, I'm like, oh yeah, this series, I love it. I need to talk about it. And I talked about the power system recently in the manga set influenced by writing video I did, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I really want to see if I can sort each book or its characters from a book into these different types of powers that exist in this universe. It's explained sort of like you're experiencing an adrenaline rush, but it's brought to a physical manifestation. Your last dying will, your last regret before you pass on into the next life, that is what gives you motivation to do impossible feats in our world as your last act. People in this universe have learned to utilize this and bring it into the manifestation of flames. Now, not all of these flames are actual fire, they don't all actually burn, but it's just kind of the term used in this. And I will be hopefully throwing up pictures somewhere that kind of like gives you the idea of what these flames look like. And I'm so excited to talk about this. And some of these were like really hard to just like connect. So it's a bit of a stretch. And if you disagree with me, go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. I would love to have a conversation with you guys because I need to talk about this series more. So, with that all being said, let's dive on in. I'm only going to talk about the 7 main types of flames that you see in this series. There are others that are brought up later on in the story. I'm just not as familiar with them. So we're going to just not touch that for the moment. I'm going to go into all of these more into detail as I discuss what book I think they would fit with. But for now, here's just the basic tagline characteristics for each of these flames. There's sky, storm, rain, sun, lightning, mist, and cloud. And the sky is known for harmonization. It is the gathering of people and the acceptance of people. The storm flame's main characteristic is disintegration. It is raging, it is destroying, that's kind of what it's known for. The rain flame is known as tranquility, it is calming, it washes away all your problems. The sun flame is activation, it is mostly a healing type flame, but it's kind of iffy depending on who you're talking to. Lightning type flame is hardening. Its characteristics are mostly striking fast and true and being the center of attention for just drawing attacks to you. And then the mist flame is construction, which is bringing illusions into reality. Really powerful mist flame users are able to create physical illusions, which is something that I think is just fascinating and never explained well enough. And then the cloud flame is propaganda and isolation. They're kind of like, they're doing their own thing, they're in their own little space, but they will come and help you when the time is needed. So those are the 7 main characteristics that you need to remember as we go into these, and of course I will explain them more as we go on. Starting off with the Sky Flame, I think the character that embodies this most is Kaz from Six of Crows. The Sky Flame is the leader of the group. They are the ones that bring all the other elements together and lead them on into the next charge. I think Kaz fits this perfectly because he takes a bunch of ragtag criminals and crooks and people who don't belong anywhere, forms them into the little gang of crows, and then takes down the world, which I love. Now, there are 2 main types of sky flames. There's the soft sky flame and then the hard sky flame. They have different characteristics, and some people can use both of them, some people can't. The hard sky flames can also be known as rage flames, which, again, it's never quite gone into enough detail. I don't think Kaz would have that, though. He really does seem like he would have more of the soft sky flames. Sky is one of the more rare types of flames. It is also the one that probably represents fire the most. It does burn, it does destroy, but it also can reinvigorate and just create wonderful things. Sky flames are really just more of an excess of energy that are being burned off. They don't have as very specific powers attached to them as other flame types might, but they're very important because they are seen as the leaders of the society. And I think Kaz would work so well with this, and again, I love this book, and I love this series, and so I think the leader of this little ragtag group might be our beautiful Kaz Brecker. The next flame I have to talk about is the Storm Flame. Continuously at the heart of the attack, the Storm Flame never rests. I had a really hard time deciding who I would pair for this, because honestly, I'm there's a couple of them, but I'm not entirely sure that they would fit. I really think they might work better for something else. So I picked 2 of them, and hopefully you agree with at least one of them, maybe. So I picked Nova from Renegade, and then Simon from the Carry On series or the Simon Snow series. I picked Simon mostly because of the Stormflame is known for disintegration. I feel like that matches his power in the series very well. He just goes off. His magic just explodes and destroys everything around him. I feel like that would work really well. I know a lot of protagonists are really written to be more of like the leader of the group, but I honestly don't see Simon as a sort of leader. He's just kind of doing his thing. And I think the Stormflame would just work so well with him. He's a lot of an offensive attacker. He goes straight in. He doesn't use magic. He uses the sword. And I think it would fit really well with him. But at the same time, Stormflames are also known for their disintegration, their decay. Anything that touched, they get destroyed. And I feel like that has a very negative connotation to fit with Simon. But if you've read this series, you might agree with me, especially considering the ending and how that works out. And I'm like, I can make an argument for it, so I'm going to say it is. And then, of course, there's Nova from Renegades. Nova is the girl who's raised by the villains and sent into the Renegade Society to take down the superheroes. I could make an argument for this, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe not. We don't really know. I feel like she would fit the Stormflame really well because she's always there to hold onto her ground, destroy her enemies. She's going into the front lines either as a spy or as a soldier, depending on which persona she chooses to take that day. She has no problem being prepared to take the shot. It does take her a while, though, to finally pull the trigger, but she doesn't hesitate when she feels like it's necessary. Again, I really do feel like she would make a very powerful Stormflame user, but Stormflame users are also known to be very diverse and able to access multiple flames. So really, she could work with anything, but I feel like Storm would probably be her main flame type. Next up is Rain. These are the people who can wash away conflict and bring tranquility to the group. I picked Sabriel from the Abhorsen series. Sabriel is taking over the role of Abhorsen from her father, and that is the person who really deals with the dead in this universe. In this universe, when you die, you don't really die. Like, you pass through a couple of these gates, and if you don't pass through a specific number, you can be brought back to life. Necromancers abuse this, and so is the Abhorsen's job to go put the dead back to rest. And I feel like it's a dirty job, but it brings peace back to the dead, and it brings peace back to the world in a land that's constantly being destroyed and rewritten by magic, especially depending on what side of the wall you live on. One side of the wall doesn't believe in magic, and the other side lives in it. And the Abhorsen is the one who walks that line. And I feel like Sabriel would just work so well because, again, they're the ones who have to work and deal with so much trouble and problems as their father disappears, and she suddenly has to take over the role that she's been preparing for such a long time. And I feel like it would really work for her, especially because of her job and having to, like, put peace back into the dead. That's really the whole Rain's job, is to bring tranquility and peace, to wash away the bloodshed, to put the dead back into the ground. Do you see where I'm going here? And if you reach a certain level of skill as a Rain Flame user, your tranquility powers can be increased to the point where you can immobilize your attacker. As in, if someone's going after you, you can just go like, calm down, and they'll calm down to the point where they just freeze, and it's so cool. And I feel like the bells that this character uses as their way to push forward their power would really work with that, because bells are kind of seen as calming and stuff, and I feel like it would just work, okay? It would just work. Next up, we have the Sun Flames, the destroyer of misfortune. The suns are the center of the sky. For this, I picked Dear Mrs. Bird. I love this book so much, and I'm not just picking it because it has a yellow cover, but no, the Sun Flames are also known as the healer type. They're the ones who try and increase blood flow and increase activity and just bring back some sort of motivation into the world. A lot of them can heal, a lot of them just want to be that motivation factor to all of those who rest around them. Dear Mrs. Bird follows our main character, Emily Lake, as she accidentally takes the wrong job and ends up just as a typist for a women's magazine when she in fact wanted to be a war correspondent during World War II. And there she realizes that this woman magazine, even though they promise to supply help and offer guidance to the women who send in letters, they're not really doing that. In fact, Mrs. Bird, the person who is in charge of this whole organization, keeps denying letters that are dealing with anything with the war or relationships or anything that she deems unsavory. So Emily Lake decides that she is going to take over that role and start secretly responding to these letters directly, using her boss's name to make them look official. And I feel like that, as dangerous as that is, it really does fit with the Sun Flame, because they're trying to bring back hope and show the world that it's really not as bad as it seems. Like, yes, we're in London, it's getting bombed, everyone's dying, but that doesn't mean the world is ending. There's still something going on out there. And I feel like Emily Lake would really fit this role of the Sun Flame, just to enlighten the world once again, saying, hey, if that boy likes you, then try and say you like him back. Even if he's living for the war, this might be your last chance. And if it is, you don't want to leave without regrets. So I'm just saying, she would be pretty awesome as a Sunflame user. Next up, we have Lightning Flames. Those characterized to draw damage away from those around them and onto themselves, acting as a lightning rod. They strike quick, they strike fast, and they're efficient. I had such a hard time deciding who I would pick for this flame, and I'm still not even like 100% sure. So I picked 2 books because I'm like, well, if I'm wrong on one of them, there's a chance I'm right on the other. And of course, that would be Percy and Monty. These 2 characters, I feel like they would work pretty well for Lightning, but once again, there could be arguments made for saying otherwise. But for Percy, I feel like he really is the person who's like, okay, there's stuff going down. I'm going to take all the damage while you guys go do your thing. I'm pretty sure you all know by now, but in this first book, Percy is blamed for stealing the lightning bolt, and he clearly didn't, but no one's going to believe him. So he goes on this epic quest to save his mother, return the lightning bolt, and just kind of like create havoc while he's doing it. He doesn't have a problem going on this mission, even though that he wasn't the one who caused it in the first place, because in his mind, he's gonna go save his mother. He doesn't care about his father's antics and like the gods trying to destroy the world. He's like, no, okay, you do you. If you're gonna blame me, that's fine, but I'm getting my mother back. And I feel like he would work really well for a lightning flame. He really doesn't like Zeus in this first book, but he's so comfortable bringing all the burden onto himself. He doesn't like having other people struggle with him. That doesn't mean he won't support the people who decide to come with him on the quest. He will take the brunt of his damage if it means saving his friends from it. I also think Henry, Monty, or Montague would be a very good option for this. I'm not entirely sure why I feel this way. It's just throughout this whole chaos, he's always just the one who's like taking the blame for stuff. He's not always happy about that, but he does it. You find out a lot about Henry's backstory, about how he takes a lot of abuse from his family and the people around him, that he's not exactly having the happiest life, but he will take the brunt of that damage if it means other people don't have to. And I feel like that's a very good characteristic for a lightning flame user to have, but there's also the fact that the characteristic of hardening is very akin to a lightning flame user, and hardening as in the point where you're going to toughen up. It's not going to be the easiest thing to do, but you're able to deal with things other people can't exactly handle. And this is shown in a couple different ways in the manga. It's really interesting because the main lightning user that we see in the manga isn't actually a very strong person. He is actually very young, he's kind of a crybaby, and I feel like the way that he moves throughout the series is very similar to the way Monty kind of does. He doesn't have the happiest upbringing, but he's willing to put up a front and face it, even if it means that he has to deal with a lot of the issues. Next up, we have the Mist Flames, and for this, I picked Daughter of a Burning City. The Mist Flames, like I mentioned before, are illusionists. They're the people who can bring something out of nothing, and I feel like that would work very well with our main character in this book. Our main character of this book is an illusionist, so that does pair very nicely, but she's also such a powerful illusionist that she can create other living beings. And while she didn't really recognize them as other humans until one of them ended up getting killed, which started off the plot of this book, I feel like it's just kind of that power and belief of saying, yes, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to make people actually believe it's real, that really connects so well with the Mist Flame. Construction and just imagination works really well into having an illusionist or a Mist Flame user, and of course that matches really well with Serena, our main character of this book. But I mean, like, I don't want to pick her just because she's an illusionist. It's an illusionist type power, but at the same time, it's kind of the best book I got on my shelf at the moment. Next up, we have Cloud Flame. This flame is sort of the independent of the family, the loner type. They're the ones who will protect the family and those around them from an independent standpoint. That doesn't mean they're going to isolate themselves completely. They do enjoy being attached to a sky or someone who will accept them, but that does mean they're not exactly going to hang out with large crowds. Even if they're there, they're kind of more going to be on the corner of it. They're doing their own thing, but they're happy to be a part of a group as long as it's not too big. And from this, I picked Nico from the Heroes of the Olympus series. Nico, I feel like, really embodies this because he's always just sort of on the edges of the camps, on the edges of the groups of people. He's sometimes there, he's sometimes not. He's just doing his own thing. I mean, as a child of Hades, he's like not entirely welcome by a lot of people. He kind of spooks a lot of them out. And of course, in this book, House of Hades, a lot of stuff comes to light. I'm not entirely happy with how it's handled, but I feel like it really develops his character a lot. And even with people willing to accept him and bring him into their group, he's always more comfortable just sitting on the edge. He's happy to be with these people, but at the same time, he has his own little bubble. It's a nice bubble. Do not touch the bubble. There will be skeletons coming out of the ground to kill you if you do. So yeah, I really do think Nico would be a good choice to have the Cloud Flame simply because He's there, he's constantly on the move though. He's either in Camp Jupiter, sometimes he's Camp Half-Blood, he's doing his own thing. But all in all, I just think he would fit the best for the Cloud Flame. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Now, I did want to include Harry Potter somewhere on this list, but I frankly couldn't decide where. He's not a Sky Flame, he's not a Storm Flame, and I went through the whole list and I'm like, he doesn't really fit with any of these. So if you guys know where I should put Harry Potter, please leave that down in the comment section down below. While there, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.